You're listening to the Spawn on Me podcast with your host, the Captain, Khalif Adams, the Baron of Bourbon, Cicero Holmes, and the man who makes everything look good, Sharif Jackson of SharifJackson.com. Welcome to Chicago, y'all. What's good? What's good? This is the Spawn on Me podcast. I'm your host, Khalif Adams. What is the deal, everybody? I hope you're all doing well. This is a wonderful, wonderful day. We have a fantastic guest that I'm going to get to in 1 second. But for now, I got to give everybody a huge shout out here at home, here in all of the internet lands, in X-Ray land, podcast land. I want to give you all a beautiful shout out for coming through and checking us out this week and every week. We had a fantastic show last week. We talked a lot about all the video games that we've been playing and all the other stuff that we've been digging into for the summer. Because, you know, summer is a little bit low in terms of game stuff that goes on. But it's always fun to be able to kind of come back and talk about all the stuff that we've been playing through and digging through in our catalog and pile of shame, as they say, when it comes to things that we've been playing. So again, thank you for rolling through this week and every week and hanging out with us at Spawn on Me. Mad love to everybody back home in New York, hanging out at the Fortnite World Cup. That is a crazy event. We're going to talk a little bit about that later in the show if we have time for it. But this week, I am super excited to rock with my man, my mellow, the smooth kind of fellow, that cat from AbleGamers, the folks that we love. It is my man, Greg Haynes. How are you doing, sir?
Dude, man, this is crazy, man. I've been waiting so long to be on this show. I'm out here sitting excited, listening to you talk. I'm like, oh, I get to be on the other side of things. I'm so hyped, man. At the same time, also like, now I finally get to ruin your show from the inside, so it's gonna be good.
Oh.
It's gonna be we're gonna do some magic here, man. We're gonna make it happen. All them jokes about things that you know about those things. You know about those things. Like that wax sport you love playing on the ice, things like that. All them jokes about my beloved fruits and vegetables and my food preferences. All of that's gonna come out, man. You're gonna get vengeance today.
I mean, well, that's the thing, though, is like it's all those small things that make up our friendship and our relationship over the past couple of years. It looks like I got you settled on that other side. They said there was some issues with the chat.
A little bit of echoing. So good.
I got you. I fixed it. I made it work. I got it working.
You the master, man.
I'm trying. But no, those are the beautiful parts about, you know, me figuring out and finding you on the internet. And it's beautiful because it's like, that's what the internet is so dope, right? It's like you get the chance to meet people who you have never have met, right? Because we all have this love of video games and we all have this want to be able to learn more from each other and all that good stuff.
Definitely.
We have an interesting story in terms of our origin story of our friendship.
Yep.
I remember seeing the work that you were doing with the folks over at the BGB, which was, again, like one of my favorite podcasts on the planet. It was amazingly dope. I was super sad to see it kind of take a long hiatus. But it was one of those things that when I was paying attention to what we were doing here at Spawn on Me, it was one of the things that I was like, these cats over here have something very, very special. And I love the fact that it was three cats who, you know, had that New York flavor that I love and miss. Being able to get together, you know, on a weekly show and talk about video games and talk about all the things that they love. I want to give the folks at home a little chance to hear from you about your background and how you've come into the gaming industry and come into this space. So I'll give you the floor.
Man, that's a long story. First of all, let me just say thank you for that, man. Like, cause I mean, we did a podcast, the BGB, the Better Gaming Bureau, with my guys, Deep Voice and, Big Train. You guys out there. What up? And we did a podcast called Get Coins to Die Trying. We did it for, I mean, maybe 3-4 years, maybe even 5. And it was just one of the best experiences of my entire life. You know, we had to, you know, for me personally, I had to pursue other things career wise. I had to do other things that kind of like nip that podcast in the bud. But, you know, it's the hiatus is current, but you never know. I'm not going to close the door on that feature, man. But, you know, for me personally, as you said, man, I'm born and raised in New York City. I'm always repping the set in that respect. Anybody who knows me is always hearing me talk mad stuff about New York City. Probably like, man, Hazy, Greg, you need to be quiet about all this New York talk. Nobody cares about New York City. But, I mean, you know how it is, man. People hate on New York City if you're not from New York City. So, you know, I spent some time in New York, you know, working in psychology, right? So I have a background in psychology, went to Fordham University. Graduated from there, right in New York City. Worked at the New York State Psychiatric Institute for a while. in the Lieber Center for Schizophrenia. So I worked with like schizophrenia subjects, patients, for approximately 6 years. So it was a real long experience, and that ties into my work with AbleGamers, because it was actually my content creation side and my, background in research and psychology that fused together to give me the opportunity, to work at AbleGamers as the lead games user researcher. So, it's a weird story about how that came about. Even like you said, like us meeting, like we met through, I think Deep Boyce, who was doing it. He was streaming on Twitch at the time. Correct. And we met through him, and then that was probably about 4 or 5 years ago, in and of itself. But, similarly, in finding that job at AbleGamers, I was going to conventions. I was going to shows for years. And in 2017, I went to PSX. And, I had already left the previous job I was at because I just kind of wanted to find something that allowed me to work directly with people and allowed me to help people in a way that felt organic to my background, right? Like, if you're studying psychology, you're kind of a people person. You want to work with people. You want to really get to understand people and work with people. So at PSX, I'm walking around. Actually, I was coming back from hanging with you, ironically. We were talking, and you made me late for another appointment. Just gonna put that out there, so that's your fault. But I'm gonna thank you because I got a job out of it. So thank you also. I was late and I needed to use the bathroom, and I was like, man, I need to find a bathroom, but this convention hall is so big, I don't know where the bathrooms are. So I see this booth over to my right, and 2 dudes standing over there, just lollygagging, not doing nothing. Yeah, I'm blowing up your spot. Craig and Mark. So I go up to them and I'm like, yo, y'all know what a bathroom is? Like in the most disrespectful, like New York way possible. I'm not like, hello, sirs. Hello, kind sirs. Can you point me in the direction of the lavatory? I'm like, yo, y'all know what a bathroom is? I gotta pee. I'm like super like aggressive about it. And they're like, do you want to know about AbleGamers? And I'm like, yes, after I use the bathroom. So So that was, so they point out where the bathroom is. They point me in the right direction. They point me in the right direction, man. And I go to the bathroom and I come back, and they're all surprised because apparently they didn't think I was going to come back. So, they introduced themselves. It was Mark Barley, the founder of AbleGamers, and Craig Kaufman, the program director and community specialist at AbleGamers. And, they're, telling me about the whole thing. And I'm like, yo, this is dope. And I'm telling them about my background and just how I wanted to find an organization that really was working with people and helping people with disabilities, really find a place in a community where they can, experience the things that I love, which is video games. And, Mark says to me, he's like, oh, cool. You like the mission? Well, hop right back in the booth and let's get to work. And I was like, okay. I was like, people want to invite me to work in their booth. I'm like, cool. And, from there on, like, I was working in the booth. I was hanging with them. Mark invited me to dinner, which I was like, oh my God, food is the key to my heart. So I was like, yo, this is dope. We had dinner. We had Indian food. I knew this was meant to be because I had Indian food, bro. And like, I was like, damn, they wanted me to work at the booth the next day at like 9 a.m. And I was saying to myself like, damn, I just had Indian food. That might be a problem for me because, the bathroom be calling at 9 a.m. sometimes. Like that's prime. That's prime, get rid of, yesterday's troublemaker time. You know what I'm saying? So the next day I went to the booth, man, and like I was good, bro. I didn't have no upsets the whole day. I was like, damn, it's meant to be, man. I was like, yo, praise be to the Hindu gods. They kept me settled down there. I was like, damn, I feel great. I feel fantastic. And, from there on, they offered me a job. They told me I had to move down to West Virginia, which, that was tough. That was tough. That was tough to hear and tough to do.
You were the first vault dweller in 76 at that point. You're the first one coming out of the vault like, yo, it's no joke down here. What's going on?
I mean, to say that, it kind of feels like that sometimes out here, man, because it'd be a little bit barren, man. Like, I'm not gonna front. Like, I got to the point I've developed the habit of just like talking to myself all the time because I got like no company. So I'm just like, hey, Greg, you interested in some cereal? And I'm like, how'd you know? It's like I'm out here just having conversations with myself, man, trying to keep myself, unlonely. But no, it's cool out here, man. It's quiet. It ain't home. You know what I'm saying? It's not New York City, but it's cool, man. It's cool. And, moving out here, everybody did their best to make me feel at home. You know what I mean? So, I appreciate that.
No, that's dope. See, that's the thing I love is hearing stories of folks who have been really excited about being in the industry and kind of learning their way around it. And it kind of just talks about, a little bit towards the ability for you to be grinding as hard as you have been for a very long time, with the background that you have, to see how, the conversations about people getting into the gaming industry has always been around. You have to be a coder, you have to be a designer, you have to be, this and that. There's so many angles
on what
to
you're trying to get
in.
into, though, right? Like, it depends on what you're trying to do, right? Like, for me personally, like, I couldn't have imagined, like, in all my time, like, podcasting and going out to shows, that I would go up to somebody and they would offer me a job based on my previous experience. But, to anybody who's trying to follow that track, like, I would say the same thing that you told me. Cause, one thing that y'all might not understand about the friendship that me and Kai have is, like, Kai in a lot of ways has been like a big brother, to me and the guys over at Get Coins to Die Trying and the BGB, where, like, we followed your example with a lot of what you were doing. Cause we watched Spawn on Me for a long time. And, you going out to shows and stuff like that, you going out to these conventions, that's what got me on that trip, right? Like, I was like, yo, I got to get out there. I got to start meeting people. I got to start talking with people. And then one thing you told me, I remember it was one summer we were talking, it was me, you, and our boy Boyce, and we were talking, and you said, say yes to opportunities. You told me to say yes to everything within reason. Obviously, somebody's like, hey, you want to get a drink out back in this alley? I'll probably want to say no to that, because that might be a little suspect. But, you said say yes to everything, and that opened up a lot of opportunities, because part of what was able to help me get this job wasn't just my research experience. It was also the fact that I knew the space. You know what I mean? Right. I knew people in the industry. I knew how to talk to people. I knew the structure of the industry. You know what I'm saying? And also I knew you, which is hilarious, because, Craig, our boy Craig, your laugh twin.
My laugh twin. I love you, Craig.
Shout outs to Craig.
I love you, son.
Shout outs to your boy Craigums. He actually was like, hey man, do you know this dude? He does podcasting, content creation. He kind of has a similar laugh to me. I've got a little bit more hair, but we're I've got a little bit more hair, but we're the same in that respect. And I'm like, I need a little bit more details in that, man. He's like, he's of color. Like, he was being around the bush. I'm like, see, you got to give me some structure here. Like, narrow it down to something where I can figure out who you're talking about. And then I was like, you mean Khalif? He's like, yeah, Khalif Adams. Like, exactly. And like, we knew the same cats. Like, and that was one of the things. Like, you gave me the cosign without actually even being there. It was the cosign, man. And then you came by the next day. You came by the booth and you were like, yo, this guy right here, he's mad good. You got to hire him. I was like, damn, Kai's holding out, man.
I mean,
Kai's holding it up, man.
I mean, one of the small things I think is like my, overall purpose in the time that I have left on this planet and in
Damn, you said, you got something to tell me? You said the time I've left on this planet. Damn.
I mean, I had some Indian food the other night too. I don't know if I'm gonna make it. I don't know. I'm gonna need all the Wakandas and all the forevers to be able to get through all the stuff that I had. Bubble Gut team. That's gonna be the new BGB. Bubble Guts is back. But it's one of those things of like, I believe that it's like your job as a person who's kind of gotten a space in the room to be able to like look out for cats who are doing the work and trying to bust their behinds and make cool stuff and open up any doors that you possibly can. And I'm happy to have been able to link you up with those cats, and I'm happy that they took you in, because I love you, I love them. It's an easy connect. So, one of the things that I'm really curious about has been, now that you've been doing the work with AbleGamers, what has been some of the kind of, you have an idea of what the work will look like when you're kind of on the outside looking in.
Sure.
What has that changed, or has it looked different, or, what has been your experience so far with kind of digging into the actual work and working with members of the disabled community?
Man, I mean, I will say this, man, like going into the situation, like I've had people with disabilities in my life that, were close to me, that served as mentors to me in many ways. Obviously I said I have a background working with schizophrenia diagnosed people out there in New York City. So like I had a perception of like mental wellness and mental health. But working at AbleGamers, and by the way, like if you're not familiar with what AbleGamers does, we're a charity that helps to make video games more accessible for players with disabilities. Because games have so many benefits that we all know. Everybody here in this community knows. Games have the ability to improve your well-being. They have the ability to help you forge lifelong relationships, like the one me and Ka, formed. Sometimes even like relationships, that create a significant other in your life. Games also help with just socializing, right? Not being able to, some players with disabilities, they may not be able to leave their house, and games allow them to connect on another level they wouldn't be able to connect to. Connect with. And, with working with AbleGamers, I really wasn't that informed about the etiquette around the community, right? Because
right.
there's certain things that you have to understand. Like, for example, me saying the term people with disabilities or players with disabilities, right? Versus disabled players, right? There's a whole discussion around that in the community about, identity first, right? Should it be disabled person or person with a disability? And it's a toss up. You'll find different people who say different things. And I had to understand that nuance when I walked into the situation. And a lot of it was just learning. A lot of it was just listening. A lot of it was just being able to absorb and understand. And that's something important that I think we want to bring up, right? Which is I haven't been diagnosed with, nor do I identify as having a disability, right? So the way I look at me coming into this community and trying to help out and trying to work with game developers to increase their awareness about what's out there in terms of disabled players, because we got a whole research group full of disabled players called player panels, where we basically garner research and information from them so that we can subsequently use that to create more accessible approaches to gaming, right? It's working with the community, right, to see what their needs are. It's working with people who may be ignorant to the needs of the community and helping them understand that. It's a whole lot in one bundle. So a lot of it had me just sitting there and listening and understanding. And for me being outside of the community, it's important that I listen versus try to lead the conversation. So like, for example, right, in the Black community, right, like that's kind of how I, create some experiences that I can equivocate in, right? The Black community. If a white dude came into a room full of Black people, if a white guy came into a room full of Black people and was like, "This is what y'all need to do to get y'all people in order," we'd be like, "Excuse me?" Like, it would be like a record scratch. Like, we need to talk about this, right?
Pardon me, Ben Carson. What are you doing here?
It'd be something like that, right? We'd have to hold the phone. And for me, like, coming into this community, I had to be like, hold up. I need to stop and listen and see what people are saying and not really talk about my experience. And it's the difference between, having a seat at the dinner table versus carving a turkey versus leading the dinner time prayer. Like, I'm a passenger in the car, but I'm not the driver. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Because oftentimes if you're from outside the community and you try to come into a community, right, and you try to dictate what that community should do, it'd be like if you hopped in a cab and I'm like, yo, I need to go to Queens, and the taxi driver took you to Brooklyn. And you're like, okay, you took me to a place in New York, but you didn't take me to the right destination, right? You didn't take me to where I needed to go. And for me, I'm like, I can't be the driver for this conversation because I don't know where they're trying to go. And I don't want to take them to the wrong place. I don't want to take them to a place where they don't want to be. So for me personally, it's a lot of listening and it's a lot of trying to understand. And every day, that's an everyday process. It's not like, I've been with AbleGamers for, almost a year and a half now. It's not like, I'm like, hey, I'm an accessibility, full-time specialist. I know everything about the disabled community. Like it's not like that. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm out here learning, and it's a constant process. And that also means learning with the times, right? That means changing with the times. Sometimes, even in that short span, I've seen people's approaches to game accessibility change. I've seen people's mindset around how, they're discussed, how the community is discussed, in the gaming space. I've seen that change. You know what I mean? It's the difference between, saying, of identifying as being of color or identifying as saying, oh, I'm colored, right? Like, there's a previous past generation where it was like colored was the way we were referred to. Now that's not the status quo.
You
right?
Speak for yourself, sir.
That's not the.
I don't mind being called colored.
I mean, brother, if that's what you want to do, man, that's all you, man. But you know, if somebody calls me color, man, I'm pulling off the belt and we going hand. We going pulling up the boxing gloves. We going toe to toe. You going 1-on-1 with the great ones, son. It's not happening like that, man.
Imagine if that was the hill that I decided to die on and no one called me on.
I'll tell you right now, you'd be dying alone, because it'd be like 6 months later, your wife is like, "Yo, what happened to that guy I used to live with? Where is he?"
Man, that colored guy was so fun.
He was so funny. Brought so much flavor. He brought some good chicken every so often. That guy was nice. Man, he used to listen to that music. What was that called? Hippity Hop? That was some real good stuff right there.
God. I'm sorry. I cut you off for a dumb joke. I'm sorry.
No, you're good, man. I mean, that's pretty much what I was going to say. And it's really something that is a learning curve. It's a constant iteration. It's a constant process of trying to figure all that out, man. You know,
yeah,
so
I think that's... Go ahead. I'm sorry. I cut you off.
No, you're good, man. You're good, man. I was really about to say, so, you know, I'm learning every day, man. That's really what it comes down to.
One of the coolest things that I've actually been able to kind of witness in real time is that learning process. And I feel like it's been helpful to me, especially as a person who's not of that community or in that community, but is trying to advocate and trying to, you know, spotlight and showcase the wonderfulness that happens in those communities.
For sure.
Learning just how language can be used in both good and negative ways has been one of the biggest learning lessons that I've been able to kind of pull in.
Oh yeah.
What do you feel like AbleGamers is doing directly to help, not necessarily just pull in from the community and then disseminate that information to folks who may not know?
Yeah.
But do you feel like AbleGamers itself is helping to kind of change the way that we're thinking about specifically not just language, but you know how that language translates into the way that we play the games that we play and how we are moving forward in terms of, you know, physical, verbal communication through the devices that we use and play with?
Sure. I mean, we do, you know, in terms of spreading the word and taking what we figure out and what we learn and disseminating that into the space. I mean, we do that in a number of ways. Let me start with, you know, the arena I work in. I work in the research arena. So as I said, player panels is, you know, something that kind of grew into a research group that we didn't even know could be possible. Like right now we're sitting on 500, you know, plus players with disabilities who are out here contributing to the research sphere, contributing to our understanding of the options and assistive tech that they use in gameplay, right? They're also working directly with developers. Like that's one thing that Player Panels does. It connects developers with this community, with this research pool, so that they can garner information to help improve their games. And our players have worked with a number of developers already to improve the accessibility in games. And on that front, we've written papers, right? We're publishing papers that introduce the terminology, to the community, to the larger community. We introduce the idea of, for example, accessible player experiences. Like that's something that we work to form. It's called APX, right? And what APX is it's a design thinking tool that allows you to develop in an accessible way at the front end of your game development process versus at the back end rather than the front end. So right now, the current status quo is to do things on a checklist base, you know? So like you come into the situation, you're like, all right, I've developed my game. Now let me go to this checklist. The problem with that is, you know, it's like going to the supermarket without a shopping list. Then you get to the register and you're like, all right, I'm ready to purchase stuff. Then I'm like, oh yeah, here's your shopping list. And you look at the list and you're like, wow, I got none of these things that I was supposed to pick up. Now I got to go back through this line. I got to bug mad people. I got to push and shove, get my stuff and get back. And from a development process, right? From a game development process, that's a waste of time. Like that's a waste of time. It's a waste of resources. Right. Ain't nobody trying to do that. So, you know, accessible player experience is something that we've developed. It's available on accessible.games. It's a website that, you know, we started to help form that design language around accessible design. And that's something, for example, that we've introduced to game developers, and a number of game studios have bought into it. You know what I mean? A number of game studios have bought the card decks that we formed around it, because we formed these little flashcards to help people understand. And each one of the design patterns within APX, right? It's 22 design patterns that sort of go into, problem solution formats, right? So the problem might be somebody can't take in the information from the primary modality through which you're trying to provide it. Like, for example, if you have a game that's only voice acted, right? And have no subtitles or captioning, somebody who is, you know, deaf or low hearing may not be able to perceive what the characters are saying in the cutscenes, right? So subtitles is a modality in which you can sort of help someone hear something or perceive something other than the way that you provide it as your primary way. So that's a design pattern we call second channel. That's one of 22 of them. And that's one way that we've sort of tried to change it on the developer side. So developers now have a tool that they can use as they're developing their game to create more accessible experiences, right? You have the community side of things. Like that's where my boy Craig comes in, right? Craig is constantly working, right, to, for example, get streamers to fundraise and share the mission of AbleGamers with their communities, right? And what that does is it creates ambassadors. It creates people out there, you know, in the world that are able to be like, oh, okay, I see there's a whole group of people out here that really can't join in this real dope experience that I have, right? You know, we have our dude Kelso. Shout out to my man Kelso. He's running a Twitch stream right now on the AbleGamers channel where players with disabilities are streaming, right? So we're helping to create a platform for, you know, content creators who identify as having a disability so that they can be showcased in a way that they feel comfortable with and talk about their personal experiences through gameplay and connect with the community directly in that way. You know, so, you know, we're also going out to events, doing talks. You know, in the year that in the last year, like I've had the opportunity, the pleasure to be at talks, man, to like actually talk. Like people are listening to me talk about stuff. I'm like, man, before I had a podcast and I was trying to get people to listen to me and they wouldn't even give me a retweet. I'm like, y'all sitting in chairs right now, listen to everything I got to say. And one, I was like, +1 for me. It's dope. But, you know, we're doing a number of things in that respect to try and improve awareness in the community and change the dialogue around the community, right? Like, cause there's this whole adage, for example, you saw that with the Sekiro conversation, man, where it was just you know, easy mode, right? And like, I'm not necessarily a proponent of easy mode, but something that APX, you know, kind of jumps into, you know, the idea of accessible player experiences is that someone is allowed to tailor the game to what they need, right? Like easy mode to me isn't really tailoring because it's a bunch of hidden settings behind a word easy, right? That the developer has hidden those settings. You don't know what those easy is relative. Easy could be, you know, maybe the combat is a little less challenging. Maybe enemies don't move as fast. It could also mean enemies die quicker. They have lower health. Maybe you're stronger. You can't put your finger on it. So you got games like, you know, Tomb Raider, for example, that give you sliders that allow you to adjust different aspects of the game to prioritize the very thing that you want to be challenging or not challenging, right? Like combat is something that you can adjust. Like, am I going to be stronger? Am I going to be weaker? Are the enemies going to be stronger? The enemy's going to be weaker. So things like that whole debate arose out of the conversation around people saying this game is hard for me. I can't play this game, whether it be, you know, for a disability or not. But the idea is, why shouldn't people be able to have access to your game? Why shouldn't people be able to come in and form the experiences they want to form? You know, as a game developer, I would think that that's the primary thing, right? You do want people to play within your vision, but you do want people to form their own experiences within your vision, right? Like you do want them to be able to form their own adventures within the vision you've established. So, you know, it's a tough conversation to have, but, you know, that's kind of what we're trying to do. We're trying to have those conversations so that we can open up the floor for discourse.
Yeah. And it feels like one of the, and I love the point that you put in there about, you know, players wanting to, again, like be a part of all these different experiences. And it feels like is this really interesting and kind of weird scenario where you have the gatekeeping folks who are like, yo, I want my game to be as hard as possible, and I don't want anybody else who can't play it at the same level that I'm playing it at to not get the experience. When you also have developers who are kind of jumping into that pool and saying, well, you know, we have this experience and it can only kind of be this way, and we only really want it to be this way. And I'm just like, you are leaving so much just on a fundamental basis. You're leaving so much money on the table and ability for advocacy for folks who are in your community who want to evangelize your game. You're botching this super, super hard, and you don't understand how bad you're doing it. Yeah, it is really crazy to see how that works. If
you look at, you know, the disability community, like, and you look at the statistics around it, like they have more money and expendable income combined than both the Black and Hispanic community combined. Like they have more than both of those communities combined.
Yep.
Like, that's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous amount of money on the table that you're leaving on the table. Like, at the end of the day, like, I'm not trying to say that, you know, game developers are only money-centric, but at the end of the day, we know there's a practical business mentality behind game development, right? Like, you need money to make games, right? You know, like, you can be artiste for all the live long day, you know, if you're painting, right, you can paint, you know, and you could, you know, do something like that. And, you know, it's just you buying paint and that's costly. But you're talking about game development here. You're talking about millions and millions of dollars, man. Like that's not something you can just scoff at. And that, you know, ties into like why we're trying to make people more aware. Cause we're like, listen, this is also a people reason, right? This is also something where we're trying to get people to have an experience they're not normally able to have. But it's also about, like we trying to put money in your pockets at the same time. Like you do this, it's not like you're not going to get any benefit out of this. You're going to get, you know, you're going to get some guap to spend, you know what I mean? You're going to get some money to keep your studio afloat, to hire more people to improve, you know, what you're trying to do with your studio.
Right.
So
we're going to take a quick break, 2 minutes break. We're going to get some water. Greg is killing it right now. I am so excited and so happy right now.
Man, we chilling, man.
Greg Haynes from AbleGamers rocking with us on Spawn on Me. Take a minute. Take a second to hang out. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back, everybody, to the Spawn on Me podcast. I'm your host, Khalif Adams. Shout out to everybody who hung with us from the break. We're chilling with my man, Greg Haynes, a.k.a. Hazy Rome from AbleGamers. Shout out to that man doing his thing.
Thank you.
Yo, one of the things that we didn't get a chance to talk about before the break was there has been a huge controversy about the newest Overwatch character, Sigma, because of the way that he has been brought into the lore. So if you are not familiar with this new character is this scientist who seems to have gone mad. And one of the things that people noticed specifically about him was that he wasn't wearing shoes, and the fact that most of the characters in the game have footwear. They're wearing things on their feet. And it was really weird to see this one character just floating around all the time with no footwear on. So people are like, so what's the lore around this, and why is this a thing that we should care about? So they asked the folks who are making the game, they asked the developers, like, what the heck is this? And they came out with this story about how Sigma was a character who was locked up in a mental institution. He was in an asylum, and the ideas around folks harming themselves by maybe using their laces to, either strangle themselves or something like to that effect, or strangle someone else, is the reason why he doesn't have shoes. And that's the reason why they added that, which added a whole other layer of yuck to the conversation around the character, because as we know, the stigma around mental illness is super real and is felt by millions of people every day. One of the reasons why I wanted to bring Greg on the show this week was because he had a fantastic thread that talked about, the reasons why this wasn't dope and why this was a thing that we should be talking about and correcting the folks over at Blizzard. And I wanted to give Greg a little bit of time to talk about, your thoughts about what you saw when they kind of gave their explanation for what Sigma was supposed to be, and share a little bit of the thoughts you shared on Twitter this past week about the character.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, right? Like, I want to set the tone for the conversation, right? So, first of all, we got this thing, and Kyle, you and I have talked about it. We got cancel culture running rampant right now, and like,
right. I
don't want this to be a situation where I'm getting at anybody on the Overwatch side of things, And to be fair, it was one character artist that made this comment. I'm not even gonna say the name because I don't want it to become a situation where everyone jumps on the bandwagon and come at somebody, because we're at a point in our socio-political culture where we need to be able to have conversations where it's someone disagreeing, but not necessarily condemning someone to, the hellfire of social media or Twitter, or Facebook, whatever social media platform you're talking about, of the hellfire of that community, right? Of the people in those communities. So, when we talk about this, like, I want to set a tone where I love Overwatch, man. Like, that's something that, like, literally my family bonds around Overwatch. Like, I play Overwatch with my sisters, my brother-in-law, a number of people within the org, AbleGamers. We play Overwatch. Like, it's a game that we love. And also, like, not for nothing, like, my opinion is my opinion about this situation. This isn't like AbleGamers.
Sure.
This is me talking. So,
Right.
you know, when I saw that, it's not so much I have a problem with the fact that he's barefoot per se. It was the fact that the specific words were that he was barefoot in order to sell the asylum look. And I'm like, that's the point where, you know, asylum sort of becomes like an aesthetic, right? Like mental health is an aesthetic, right? You got to sell me on this character's, you know, mental state by not giving him shoes. You know, like, let me give you an example that may be a little extreme. It's admittedly extreme, right? But I want to put this out here because it gets you in the frame of mind that you got to think about in order to attack something like this. Not attack, but discuss something like this.
Right.
So if we were creating a game, right, and it featured a former slave, right? Dude's name is Ezekiel. Let's throw out a name. Ezekiel. Former slave, right? Video game character. My man Ezekiel, right? They're like, well, he's a former slave. He's a runaway slave, right? Ran away from the South. He's in the North now. We really wanted to sell the slave look. So in the game, he's going to be wearing shackles. How would that come off?
Depends.
Like,
Like,
whoa.
Yeezy Shackles?
Brother, you better, man,
sorry.
you got to get your, man.
I apologize. If they were Yeezy Shackles, then I don't know. I can't say. I can't call
Shackles
it.
are shackles, brother.
Shackles
You know what
are
I'm
shackles.
saying?
Yeezy Shackles myself.
Bro, listen, you about to die on another hill right now by yourself. All right? That's 2 times. We counting now. There's a kill count right in the corner of the screen right now, man.
I'm going to yeet. Yeet. Yeah, Yeezy Shackles.
Yeezy Shackles. I'm done with the chat. I'm not talking to nobody out there. Jordan Brandon Shackles. Oh my goodness. Don't even talk to me. I'm not even looking at the chat anymore. We done with y'all.
I'm sorry. I keep railroading your actual dope thought.
No, I mean it's a funny. Listen. It's unintentionally funny when I bring it up, but like when I brought it up, y'all all just said, "Oh, like that's not." It was like and like that meme that you see out there, like it's like and like that's not something we want to talk about. You know, so like that's an extreme version. That's an extreme version of the story because like there's a whole history to slavery. But what I'm trying to get to is in order for there to have been a history of slavery, we had to come from those, you know, hundreds and hundreds of years and realize like this thing is wrong. And
Right.
to, you know, to use things that invoke that time in a way that's insensitive to the people who are sensitive about that time is low-key disrespectful. Now, we have to develop a culture around how we perceive things like mental health, right? So the idea that there's an asylum look, right? It almost cheapens the idea of mental health for people, like the seriousness, the impact of it, right? So for someone who has been in an asylum, for example, there are a number of people, I'll give you an example, right? In the schizophrenia population, there are a number of people in that population, you would never know they have schizophrenia. You would never know the experiences that they're having. You would never know the trouble they had finding medication, finding treatment, finding people to accept them for, you know, who they are, creating valuable relationships from a you know, interpersonal standpoint. There's a number of issues, financial issues. And when you use the term, you know, asylum, right, it evokes a number of things for that demographic of people, right? Within an asylum with an inpatient unit, fear can come into the play. Anxiety can come into play. Anger can come into play. Like there's some people who, you know, had to be put into, you know, a facility so that they could, you know, be better cared for. And that necessarily wasn't something that they wanted to do. It could represent, you know, a number of negative emotions that are, you know, something that they live with. It's a reality for them. It is every day for them. And to say that you're trying to sell the asylum look, you know, it kind of cheapens that experience, right? And, you know, when you look at a game like Overwatch that has a really thick lore, right? Like it has some really, you know, great stories there with their characters have told, you know, via YouTube series, via comic book series, via, you know, graphic novels or things along those lines, more or less.
Right.
And you look at the fact that, you know, him not having shoes is the way you can sell. You're trying to sell that asylum look, you know, try to sell the fact that, you know, he had a mental health, you know, disorder is kind of cheapens that way of telling stories, right? And you also look at the fact that, let's take a character from another game. Look at Apex Legends, right? Let's look at your man Caustic, right? You listen, we joke about Caustic when we play Apex, man. My man is saying stuff like, you know, oh, the blood of my enemies, it's what I long for. Like, he's saying like weird stuff where you're like, oh, this guy is extra edgelord, you know what I mean? But when you look at it, you're also able to discern, like, if you really think about Caustic, you're also able to be like, well, this guy, you know, has some sociopathic tendencies. You're able to abstract, you know, the issues he might have in his personal life, or, you know, the disorders he might be dealing with in his personal life, and extract that from those things that he's saying. You know what I'm saying? So like, you're able to sort of garner information about him through those voice lines, you know, and you could easily do that with the character like Sigma without having to say that you're suddenly a Asylum look. Now, I'm not saying he shouldn't be barefoot per se, but I'm saying it's a matter of how you converse around the topic of him being barefoot, right? Like, we can't be sitting here saying something like, oh, I'm trying to sell the slavery look, right? I'm trying to sell the former slave look, right? That's out of line. You know what I mean? That, like, that's something where we need to start changing the narrative about how we talk about these things. You know, there are a number of ways where you could talk about his mental wellness, right? That's one side of it. Then the other side is the sort of stereotyping of people who have not even just mental health disorders, but disabilities in general, stereotyping them as villains, right? That's a huge problem in our culture, where if somebody has a missing eye, if they're wearing an eye patch, if they got a hook, if they have, you know, an amputated leg, they're portrayed as some sort of villainous character. And that creates an aura around, you know, the disability community of, you know, villany and debauchery, and being essentially lacking the values of, you know, the standard, you know, per occupant of planet Earth, right? And we sort of have this negativity that's developing around the culture, and we're unable to restrain or control that. So we have to start reining that in. Like characters like in Watch Dogs 2, I believe his name was Josh, if I'm not mistaken, right? He's a character who works with the team. You know, he's on the autistic spectrum, and he works with the team, and he's a cool guy. He's a nice guy. And it's just his disability doesn't define, you know, his motives per se, but it is part of his characterization, and it does inform some of the things he does. But he's not like, I'm doing this because of my disability and we need to right this wrong. Like I'm very much this person. I love who I am, but I'm also trying to do these other things to benefit my life. And we have this thing in our culture where it's like, you have a disability and, you know, it causes you to want to burn the world. And I'm like, we kind of have to put a hold on that. We kind of have to put a pause on that and really start thinking about how we're having these conversations, engaging in these conversations. So I don't have a problem with Sigma per se, but you know, that's just me. Again, let's go back to the fact that I don't identify as having a disability either. So you think about somebody who has maybe had a relative who's lived, you know, in an asylum, or have been in an asylum, or someone who's even been in an asylum themselves. Hearing that could be triggering. It could be disrespectful for them. And we have to start thinking about those things, because at the end of the day, like, these experiences that these people are having, like, while they're playing your games, it's important that they're able to jump into your game and not have to think about some of the personal things that they may be conflicted with when they're playing your game. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying they should never think about their personal lives, but you don't want someone to feel offended by the character you're trying to represent. So that's kind of my summation of all that. You know what I mean? And, you know, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it, man.
I mean, it was one of those things that, again, like, I'm always trying to move in a way that is empathetic.
Sure.
And I feel like if you move from a humbled experience of being empathetic, of knowing that your experiences are not like those of other people as a baseline, then you get the ability to kind of look at situations and say, well, at first glance, this thing might not have been a thing that might have sparked that kind of feeling within me, but I can understand why now, after it being explained by dope folks like you and other folks that we have in the community, to say, well, oh, this is the reason why this is a problem, right, and I should be taking and paying a little bit more attention to, you know, the reasons why. And then, you know, if you're a curious or inquisitive person, then you will go back and kind of think about the extra steps of, you know, where you go from there to figure out, you know, all the other touch points that connect to that. Right. It makes me think about, you know, not just Sigma in that way. And I'm happy that you brought up Apex Legends, because when Octane came out, the conversations around that character being a double amputee were really pretty impressive in the way that both the dev team looked at that particular character. Although I have a small thing about him that I find a little bit not worrisome, but it's it feels like that same kind of
do tell.
I mean, it feels like that same conversation about like once you have a person with a disability in a game, they wind up being a part of the villain squad, right? Like we saw with a fantastic piece of writing from Chris Plant over at Polygon when he talked about the characters in Rage 2 having cleft palates, and then how those characters how then were, you know, made to be these kind of not villainous, but they were kind of there to be laughed at and to be kind of the butt of a joke. And Octane's thing, I like the character design. I think it's really dope that they made him a W amputee. It just feels like the fact that he is so extra.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Like, you know what I mean? He's like a wacky type hijinks character. And it's like, I'm silly and fun. And, you know, it's refreshing to have that, I think, too. Yeah. But I see where you're going with that. And that's the thing. It's like, a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword. And it's tough to have these conversations. And that's why it's really, really important that as a game developer, that you bring the people that you're trying to represent into the conversation. Bring them into your studios. Talk to them. Get that consultation. Get that opinion. Because oftentimes we're like, well, I think that's fine. It's like, okay, does that pertain to you? Like, is this something you have to deal with? Is this something you have to live with? And again, I'm not faulting any game developers about in that respect, but we have to get to the point where we're actually including people. And again, like that's another thing that AbleGamers advocates. Hire people with disabilities. Talk to people with disabilities. Bring them into your communities. Let them be a part of the discourse. Give them the platform. Let them talk, and more importantly, listen. Let them say their piece. Let them speak their truth and listen to it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you won't have these problems where it's like, all right, you know, we're trying to sell an Asylum look. Why are you trying to sell me with him being barefoot?
Right.
Like, sell me on the character with the backstory you give him. Sell me on the character with the stories he's telling. We also have an issue in our culture where we're out here, you know, right now there are scientists that are being discredited for saying shit that we know is real. Like global warming. Like, we know global warming freaking exists. And we're in our culture right now, we got literally a group of people that are like, oh, these people are crazy. Like, these people are out of their mind. And Sigma, you know, is a scientist who's going crazy, and it's just like that mad scientist trope. Like, we kind of don't need that right now in our society. I know. We need to start taking our scientists a little bit seriously so we can actually start doing something about the things that are problematic right now. You know, because we're about to just let our world burn. You know what I'm saying? It's real nice to be in New York and, you know, get a 60 degree, you know, winter day. But, you know, I was in New York the other day and it was like 187 degrees. Like, I was sweating so much. I lost like 16 pounds when I was in New York last week. Like, I was like, bro, it's hot. This global warming thing is legit. Greenhouse gases and all that. It's not a joke. It's not a game. We gotta take this stuff seriously.
I just saw a video on Twitter where they had this woman who was a legislator in some part of the country talking about from her office in her city council talking about, so we need everybody to go to church and we need to know that that the earth is 6,000 years old. And I was like, there's nothing I can do. Like, people elected that person to sit in an office and do the governance that they're supposed to do for their local stuff. So like,
I'm not gonna hate on religious preferences. I'm not gonna hate on religious preferences, right? But like, you know, versus, you know, you go to church and learn that the earth is 6,000 years old, but is that really contributing to the current way you go about your life, the current status quo? I don't give a damn how old the earth is. I'll be honest with you. I really couldn't care less. I just know what the earth is going through right now, and we need to fix it fast. Yeah, fast, bro.
It's madness.
We need to fix it.
But to divert from that conversation, because that could be a whole other hour of conversation.
You damn right.
Oh my goodness. What's one of the biggest needs right now, or concerns, or requests that you hear from various factions of the disabled community when it comes to what they're not seeing in games as things that they actually need? Because I know there was a huge push with all of you with the Xbox adaptive controller, so that fit a need that was there for physical input for certain parts of games. But what's some of the things that you hear from the community as being the things that are top of list right now?
I mean, the first thing is options in your games, right? Like being able to tailor the experience, like I talked about earlier. Like right now, we're starting to see the industry really open up and start to include other options that are allowing people that are facilitating the ability to create your own experiences, right? But the problem is we don't see consistency across the space, right? Like we see certain games, will introduce a feature that allows you to change your contrasting, right? Or adjust multiple, levels of your audio, right? Which can be important to somebody who maybe has a hearing based, disability. But then you see another game that will literally just have one slider that's like sound, right? Versus another game that has, sound effects, music, voice lines, like, and allows you to adjust it on those levels, right? Or having surround sound versus, mono, or something like that. And right now we're not seeing consistency across, the option space. And that's why we developed that design thinking, that accessible design thinking tool I talked about earlier, so that we can get a way of thinking, and more importantly, a language that developers can use to talk about things, in order to develop in a more accessible way. So like going back to that modality example, where there's a primary modality through which you're, giving people, the information you're providing in the game, right? So let's go back to cutscenes, right? Allowing developers to look at that cutscene and be like, there's no subtitles, there's no captions. What is the problem here? I've only given one modality through which this person can understand it. They need a second channel to be able to understand the information I'm putting out there, right? So we're trying to give them a language so that they can talk about these things. It's incredibly difficult to talk about a problem that a bunch of people are having if you're unable to surmise what that problem is, or summarize what that problem is, right? Like you could be in a crowd and everybody's saying, different things like, man, I feel uncomfortable in here. Man, I'm sweating. Man, it feels tight in here. Like I don't have any space. The air feels kind of thick in here. And you're like, okay, what's the problem? It's hot. Like you can summarize what the problem is based on what they're saying. You're like, oh, it's hot in here. So you're like, all right, now I can do something about the heat. I can look into a fan. I can look into AC. I can open the windows. I could blow in people's faces, maybe cool them down. You know what I mean? Like there are a number of ways you could think about it now that you have a term that allows you to solve the problem. So right now, in terms of consistency of options, that's a huge problem. We're also seeing a problem in the VR space where, and this is something that, as part of the research team, like this is something that we're trying to look into and understand, because obviously with VR and AR and XR, if you want to use that term, as an all encompassing term for VR and AR, right now we're seeing a barrier there where, first of all, VR, AR requires a lot of mobility, right? So if you have dexterity, a disability that affects your dexterity, VR is inaccessible to you, right?
Yeah.
VR, AR is also very visual, right? So like right now you need like sound and things like that to help improve that experience, to allow people to be able to perceive an environment, a virtual environment, even if they can't see or if they have, visual disabilities. So VR is an issue that I'm hearing, from the community in that respect. I mean, there are a number of issues that I hear, and it's it's tough to sort of summarize all of them. But, another problem I'd say is out there is representation, right? Like we talked about that a little bit earlier, where like how many games can you name in the past 5 years that have had, a person with a disability? Like, we have that same problem in the PLC community, right? Where
I can't remember any ones that have been on the front of the box either, except for maybe the Surge, but that's not even really. I don't even think that counts really, but that's a good point. That's such a good point.
We're not having these characters represented in a way that allows people to understand that there's people living with these things and they're able to live a life with these disabilities. And that's the first step to getting people to understand somebody else's experience. You know what I mean? That's the first step. And we have to be careful about that, though. We have to be careful about just saying, I'm going to write a character who has a disability in my game. Like, okay, right. Did you talk to somebody who has a disability that you're trying to represent? That's another problem, right? Like, if you could talk to somebody who has, a disability and hopefully they can inform the process. But like, for example, going back to the character in Watch Dogs, did you talk to anybody who has, who's on the autistic spectrum? Or did you talk to somebody who's double amputee? Right? It's like, they can inform you about certain things to be sensitive about, but they can't hit you with that person's, experience. You know what I'm saying? They can't hit you with that person's exact experience. There are games like, for example, Metal Gear Solid 5, where Big Boss, Venom Snake, had an arm. But there's also this period where my man learns to use that arm in like 2 seconds. Like you're
That's true.
never exposed to the experience of like he tries to grab the bottle at the beginning of the game and he has a little trouble with that, but that's pretty much all you get. My man's rocket punching the shit out of people, 2 seconds later. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? Like having someone, deal with that and show that sort of growth, that maturation, as they try to live with their new normal is important for that. So there are a number of things in that respect from a representation standpoint that I'm probably not even the best person to talk about, about. I'm really articulating what I'm hearing. And that's really what my role is I'm not speaking for the community. I'm not articulating for the community. I'm here to say, give the microphone to them. That's my job. My job is to say, all right, I would like to expand the platform that they have.
Yeah.
And then I go back to my seat and I sit there and I listen and I clap and I cheer and I see, all these amazing experiences that are happening in the community so that I can just take solace in the fact that this awesome community that I love, this gaming community that I love is growing. And every day it's becoming a better place, a more tolerant place. You know what I'm saying? And that's work that you're doing right now with Spawn on Me. And that's work that I'm trying to do as a person of color, as a black man. I'm trying to improve that perception for us. And for me, it's fighting a good fight on multiple fronts. But at the end of the day, like we all stand to benefit from it.
Fam, man, that is literally the most perfect way to end this episode. Man, I gotta say before I let you go, I love you, fam. It has been just one of my most happiest moments to have seen you grow so much in this space.
Dang,
so quickly,
tear up on this podcast.
So quickly, and do so much wonderful work with you and the rest of the AbleGamers folks. I love y'all more than you can ever know because you all are doing the work. You're doing the stuff on the ground. You're making people's abilities and stories and their life experiences be known in places that other folks are just not paying attention. And it's been really great to be able to see all of you push past the beginning stages of everything that's been going on and seeing and hearing all the conversations about some of the wonderful big things that are coming up for you all in the space. So again, Greg, Hazy, fam, I love you. It's dope for you to have you on the show finally. Let the folks at home know where they can find you, where they can find the work that you're doing and more of the stuff about your socials and things.
Yeah. First things first, you can follow AbleGamers on Twitter, at AbleGamers. You can also visit our website, ablegamers.org. One thing that contributes to helping do what we do is fundraising. Swing by our website, ablegamers.org/fundraise. If you're a streamer, we'd love to have you, stream and raise funds for our work, for what we're doing. A big part of our mission is that we give controllers to players with disabilities to provide them with the means for them to be able to play games, right? Sometimes those controllers are customized. Sometimes we're going into hospitals and giving out controllers there and setting up what we call expansion packs, where we're creating these huge rooms with assistive tech and gaming technologies, and we need help in that respect. And some people think about, oh man, I only got $1 to give. I'm like, yo, we also need things that help us run the organization from an operational standpoint. Like that $1 you gave, that's a pen that I now have to take notes on the things that I need to take notes on. Like that's a serious thing. Like these things add up, they cost money. So any help in that respect is welcomed. You can find me personally on Twitter at Greg J Hazy. That's Greg Greg J as in jalopy and Hazy as in Hazy. I couldn't think of a J word fast enough. I should have said like Jaguar, but I was like, damn, does anyone even know how to spell jalopy? I don't even know if that's is that a J word. Come
out of somewhere where it was like, yo, J for jingoism. That's not what we want. But it's a word that starts with a J.
I'm like, man, I really was like, damn, I need a J word. I need a J word. Jalopy was the first thing I could come up with, man. Somebody spell check me on jalopy. I don't even know if that's a J word, but, but yeah, man, like I'm out here. And let me also say, like, I'm planning on returning to the content creation game eventually. So stay tuned to my Twitter. I hope to announce some new things there. And, I want to get back to talking about things. I want to get back to talking to people like Khalif and, just having good conversations around the gaming sphere, man. So yeah, I hope I didn't forget anything. Oh, if you're a developer, swing by accessible.games. There you can find, APX, something I talked about earlier. It can really help you, design your games in a more accessible way. Also, if you're a player with disabilities, player panels, right? That's the research pool I talked about. You can sign up on that website. You can sign up for player panels. There's an FAQ there. You can sign up, join the conversation, and join the process of increasing awareness around the video game space. And if you're a developer interested in working with that player panels group, you can also submit your proposal there as well. So swing by there. Don't criticize anything that's on that. That'd be nice, and just have fun. That'd be
cool. Be nice to the AbleGamers crew, because they're doing that work.
We try
again, everybody.
Man. Oh, shout out to the team: Steve, Mark, Chris, Craig, Kelso, Jesse. I love y'all.
Love y'all. Again, thank you so much for rolling through, fam. It's been so dope to have you. Everybody at home,
man. I'm happy to be here, bro.
Word. Everybody at home, make sure you're checking us out on xray.fm Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. Pacific time. All podcast platforms, all that goodness right there. We will be back next week with more dopeness. I'll be at Evo next weekend. So we may have a couple of episodes dropping with some interviews from the show there. Hopefully the locusts don't kill me. But
Yo, that's great.
Like, that's the thing I never thought I would say on the podcast. Hopefully the locust won't kill me, and I wasn't talking about Gears of War. Anyway, much love to you all at home. Stick around if you're watching us on Twitch. We're going to go raid some wonderful folks. And everybody else, we say peace.
Peace.
The Spawn on Me podcast can be found every Tuesday on all podcast platforms and Portland Radio at xray.fm at 107.1/91.1. You can find us live every Thursday on twitch.tv/Spawn on Me. If you want to reach out to us on the show, you can hit us up on our site, spawnonme.com, where you can find all our social media information about our Twitter, Instagram, and everything else, alongside our contact page if you want to reach out and shoot us a message or a business inquiry. Much love to you all. Thank you so much for listening every week. And we say peace.